Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back once again to the Farts and Crap Show, where today we have part 14 of Stick Tips. And no, I didn't forget. Yeah, so this is a follow-up to part 13, which is why I bring up the episode number. In episode 13, I talked about this, the 8-bit SN30 Pro USB, the new one. They made the gray edition. A commenter pointed out they didn't really fix the D-pad issues. With the new one, I think they were talking about the Pro 2, I think? I'm not sure. Anyway, all the models are kind of similar. So yes, in the way that people were hoping that they would fix it, it's not fixed. Hardware aside, I think the hardware side is just great, personally. As long as, and that's kind of what I cover here on Stick Tips, kind of like how to improve the blah 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 blah. And in the episode, I talked about version 1.04 firmware, which is still pretty broken. And I'm going to go over some of the highlights, like, you know, the problem, the recommendation for now, at least until hopefully 8BitDo fixes their oopsie. So, essentially, in order to change the firmware of your controller, because if you're getting like a new one in box, a SN30 Pro USB, it's going to come pre-installed with the latest firmware, version 1.04. So if you go to their website, their support website, so support.8bitdo.com, I'm talking about this one. It looks just like the other ones, but it has the wire coming out of it. And if you go ahead and click on like the firmware thing, what you want to roll back to is version 1.02. I say 1.02 because when they updated to 1.03, they claim to have fixed kind of the same thing. They like addressed it in some way, but it didn't actually fix the problem. In 1.04, it kind of was supposed to address it as well, but again, didn't fix the problem. So 1.02 is still the most stable, most recent one that you can download. Because at 1.01, you can see they don't have a link for it anymore. You can't roll back the firmware unless you still have the download from like back when it was available. Okay? And they also have the 8BitDo firmware updater application, but at least the Windows version of this app, it doesn't recognize the SN30 Pro USB, unfortunately. So after you roll back the firmware, just when you download the firmware, it comes with like an instructions on like how to update. It's really simple. Hold L, hold R at the same time, and then plug it into your computer, and then it will go into, it'll just like recognize it as an external storage device. And you just open it, and then, you know, copy over the .dat file, then eject. It's real simple. So just follow the instructions. You don't have to like format the disk or use any sort of special program. You just copy the file over, unplug it, you're good. Don't worry about it. Anyway, with that out of the way, yeah, so I noticed this when recently I was recording part 36 of Pokemon Sword Revisited, and I was having some serious issues and I wasn't sure why. But then I remembered, oh yeah, I also had this problem when playing Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles on Switch. Part of the problem here was the analog sticks, they would either ignore an input or they would linger on an input for a while. So, like, you couldn't have just like little micro adjustments with the analog stick, and you couldn't like smoothly like change directions. It would just be kind of like all over the place. And it was only on games that utilized local communication. A lot of games on the Switch don't. They either have only online multiplayer, so it just, connects as per usual. But some games do utilize this feature of the Switch, and for some reason, it messes with wired controllers with bad firmware. So, if you notice that it only messes with certain games like Pokemon and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, I'm sure there's others, but essentially on the home screen on the top right, because I'm using an Ethernet adapter right now, but if it has the little L next to the Wi-Fi signal, it means you're using local communication. All right. And I could even confirm this before when I was on version 1.04. I already rolled back to version 1.02 by going into system settings, and I don't want to accidentally like have to like edit something into the other thing. So you know what? I'm just going to carefully go, here we go, to controllers and sensors, and then of course you want to make sure a wired communication thing is on for using wired controllers. And don't try to update on the Switch or calibrate on the Switch with the SN30 Pro USB. It won't work. It'll hang on the process, but you can at least check the analog input. So you can go ahead and click on the analog stick and then kind of just do a bunch of like little fast ones. And if you do this on version 1.04 while you have a game that uses local communication, as they call it, I think it's actually technically ad hoc Wi-Fi. Anyways, it's a different type of Wi-Fi. It's like system to system wireless. It'll ignore some of these. It'll like register some of them accurately and then just ignore them for a couple of seconds, or it'll hang on a specific point like this. I'm actually just holding the analog stick in the same spot, and then it'll go back to like not registering an input. And I have absolutely no problem at all. I didn't have a problem with this at all on PC. Actually, I was using it on Steam, and I think that was on version 1.04. I think it might have been before. It might have been on version 1.02. So don't quote me on that. But yeah, now absolutely no problems. And as you guys can see here, let's go ahead and just save. Go ahead and quit. Watch the logo on the top right. See? Now that's the logo for when you're using a wired internet connection, an Ethernet connection on your Switch. So now that it's not using that software that utilizes local Wi-Fi anymore, it's just doing that. And lo and behold, it's like the exact same. Because like there was a little bit of added latency for some reason, and the analog stick accuracy was all over the place. So let's go into Crystal Chronicles real quick and see if it does the same thing. Because in Crystal Chronicles, yeah, there is online multiplayer, but you can also play locally without an internet connection with other players. I think only on Switch, but it might work on mobile as well. And some systems like just don't have this feature, like PS4 and a bunch of consoles like that. Um, yeah, and I think you actually have to turn it on Crystal Chronicles, which is pretty cool, honestly. Or it might be just not active on the title screen. Go into here. Crystal Chronicles is kind of a loud game, so I'm just going to turn it down by default. And it might have to connect or something. I don't remember. I think it was doing it on single player too, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's gonna ask. Let's just go ahead and load. Now connecting, yeah, it's checking the network environment, I believe. Oh, still hasn't changed it. Anyways, it was happening in this game as well. Let me know in the comments if you've noticed the problem in other games. These are the two I noticed it the most. So it didn't matter where I was in the game at all. It would just ignore changes in the analog. Or I would choose to move in a direction and it would keep moving kind of like indefinitely for a while. Instead of like having 360 degrees of movement. So as you can see, got smooth movement now. Which is amazing because that's great. It's absolutely great. That is so much better. Actually feels accurate. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, it's pretty much all fixed up now. And yeah, it's not perfect. Version 1.02 definitely has some issues still. It could be refined. It's not 100% accurate, but it's really good. Like really, really good. I think probably what happened is like some people were complaining, they overcorrected, caused a problem with 1.03, tried to fix that problem without essentially just copying and pasting 1.02 and calling it 1.04, and further messed it up. So yeah, that's my recommendation in this video. So if you're having issues with the SN30 Pro USB or another wired controller, but actually no, this one specifically, and it could be on the end of like Nintendo as well, because why would a wired controller be affected by a wireless Wi-Fi thing? It's when it's not using any kind of wireless connectivity. So literally communicating over USB. Um, so I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the Switch dock itself. Like maybe there's third-party docks out there that are actually really good and don't have this problem. Hopefully. I mean, there's a few out there. I mean, with all the problems that third-party docks have had in the past, I can understand people don't want to take the risk because like Switches were getting bricked. So that's scary. That's a really scary prospect. Um, because I mean, Hyperkin made one, like Brook made one. I think it's a Crimson Power Bay, and Brook has like a really good like like reputation, you know, for making like quality stuff. Yeah, I can confirm I have two Brook adapters, and they're both very good and reliable. Um, does that mean I'd buy a Brook switch dock? No, no, just not gonna risk it. But yeah, that's it for this video, guys. I just wanted to make a video about this while it was fresh in my mind, and I know I have talked about it before, but then I was like, we got the whole SEO thing. A lot of people that don't watch the show regularly might have no idea. So that's my tip, my stick tip, my recommendation, controller recommendation for you guys. That's why it's called Stick Tips. It's a pun, play on words. Anyways, because people go into controllers as sticks. Anyway, don't. That's my controller recommendation for you guys. Worst outro ever. Um, but yeah, have a beautiful day. If you guys want to support the show more directly, there's a join button down there. We got new videos every day, so subscribe, like all the things. That'd be great. We try to make it entertaining, helpful, or any of that stuff. If it was, you know, leave a like. If it wasn't what you thought it was, I'm sorry. Um, hopefully, you guys, if you're watching this video, you probably searched for some kind of fix for some kind of 8-bit controller, or maybe you're in the market for a new Switch wired controller. I would definitely say if you don't have one yet, don't be like, oh, the firmware, it's not ready yet. I'm gonna get a different controller. With version 1.02, it works very well for pretty much every game that I've tested on the Switch. As a Switch wired controller on version 1.02, it's amazing. All right. But again, it's my opinion, my recommendation. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care. And until next time, things. See ya.